What's up, Mark? Figure it's been a while since we just sat and kicked back, talked about the case. Scorpio, how you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Sweets, welcome. Pitbull, welcome. Good evening, Jari. So we're going to talk about Abby and Libby's case today. I just heard on a news report that Richard Allen is no longer listed as being incarcerated with Oklahoma. What's up, Joni? Good to see you, Mark. So where is Richard Allen? Honestly, do we know? Does anybody in the chat know where Richard Allen is right now? And I mean, what's going on with him being transferred to begin with? I always wonder if he's getting ready to confess or something, you know? I really hope that he would. When Koberger confessed, I felt some closure with that case, with the Idaho 4. Not that I'm not going to continue to cover it, because of course I will as information is released from time to time, but I really feel closure with that case. I feel like we know what happened. I don't really feel that way with Delphi. I mean, think about it. We speculated about Kagan Klein. Like, oh man, you know, he's obviously involved, this and that, Anthony Schatz. And then we don't hear anything about it. Richard Allen gets arrested. And through the process of the slow drip of release of information, we find that Kagan Klein actually confessed. So the guy that we were led to believe was involved in the crime, unbeknownst to us, actually confessed to his role in the Delphi murders. I mean, how bizarre is that? You know, we sleuthed for years. For 6.5 years, we were trying to find out what the hell was going on with Keegan Klein and why he hadn't been charged yet. Then they arrest Richard Allen. And through the slow leaking of information through the trial process, we find out that Keegan Klein actually confessed to participating in the Delphi murders. And then for us, there's no shock value. You know, we're completely like, we're no longer interested in that. We're over here now. But some people were paying attention and still are. I mean, just think about that. We looked and we looked and we looked and tried our best to connect Keegan Klein and Anthony Schatz to the murders of Abby and Libby. Everything pointed at them. Law enforcement chased them, spent millions of dollars investigating that connection, trying to connect Richard Allen even to the Kleins. How bizarre is it that this entire time that we were trying to find a connection, He had already confessed to participating in the murders. I just don't understand how that happens. So it makes me wonder about Richard Allen being transferred, not knowing where he's at. Is he finally cooperating? I guess is a good word. Mark's asking Sleuth, what other info do you think Richard Allen could confess that would prove his guilt or even more? I'm thinking some kind of corroborating information that corroborates with what Keegan Klein had been saying. Maybe even an arrest of TK or another family member. I believe when it comes to if Keegan Klein was involved, somebody helped him with his alibi. Now remember, TK doesn't have an alibi. His alibi is that he was with Keegan Klein. Keegan Klein's alibi, so he's piggybacking. TK is piggybacking on Keegan Klein's alibi. And his alibi is cell phone activity. Well, his cell phone connected to the Trexler Wi-Fi when the murders were happening. So that's it. That's not an alibi. Your phone moving and being activated is not an alibi. You are not your phone, and your phone is not implanted into your body. That should never be an alibi. It doesn't make any sense. What's up, Louise? What's up, Cindy? I watch now and then the DT show, Drunk Turkey Show. Big shout out. But I feel like Koberger is done and there can't be much more evidence to come. I just feel Delphi still interests me. I still follow the case and I still find it interesting because we're still learning about the motive, and we're learning a lot about Brian Koberger and just how much of a psychopath he really was. So there's a lot to be learned there, trying to understand how something like that can happen. But as far as closure, I definitely feel that. Like, I feel like they have the guy. There's no unanswered questions other than trying to understand the mind of a killer, trying to understand how this could be possible to begin with. But with Richard Allen, I mean, I feel like others are involved. And it's kind of like with the Keegan Klein and the Anthony Schott stuff, right? It's never over, right? I just feel like they're not done yet. Something's happening. And that's been the ebb and flow of the Delphi case. What's up, Tattoo? Yeah, I saw that. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. Those of you who send tips and stuff like that through Cash App, I really appreciate that. It does come in handy. Cindy says maybe that's why I have a hard time with Delphi. Yeah, I feel like they're not done. I feel like they know that the Kleins are involved, that it's some type of a conspiracy, but it was so well planned that they covered their tracks pretty good, right? I mean, Richard Allen has like probably 30% of the people who have been following the Delphi case fooled. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mark. Thank you. And if you guys can't hit the Cash App, hit the like button. Don't be afraid of the like button. So I feel like them keeping all that information hidden about Keegan Klein, the reason we don't have any answers in regards to that is because it's not over yet. It's not done, right? I feel like the prosecution and the investigative team, they did what they had to do. Like that's why the conviction of Richard Allen seems so fraudulent to a lot of people is because they know that Richard Allen is involved, but there's just a huge chunk of the story that they can't tell for obvious reasons. So that leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. But I think I have a clear image of what they're trying to do, and the story's not done. They had to do what they had to do with Richard Allen to make sure that they get him convicted. In order to do that, it looked a little shady, right? Because they had to keep a big part of the story from the public without giving the defense anything to work with. That's not an easy thing to do, bird on a wire. So it was a very tricky situation for them to convict Richard Allen and then behind the scenes continue. Um, welcome, Kate. I just don't see how the Kleins wouldn't have spilled the beans by now if they were included. Kate, okay, I'm going to say this one more time for the people in the back. Kagan Klein is the only person to officially confess to participating in the Delphi murders. Kagan Klein is the only one to do that. He's the only one to officially sit down with the investigative team, including the prosecutor, confess in whole to his part in the murders. It is official. So when you say how the Kleins wouldn't have spilled the beans, they did. Easy says, "What's the point of still covering the case constantly if you believe it's solved? Just curious, not being disrespectful." Usually, when somebody says not being disrespectful, that means that they are being disrespectful. And if you're not interested in the case, what are you doing in the chat? I'm live right now on the Delphi murders for those people who are interested in the case. So, what are you doing here? Not being disrespectful, just asking. What's up, Boston? What's going on, Anthony? Yeah, I couldn't go to sleep. I slept in today, and then I had coffee during the live stream, so I'm up. I don't know, Boston. It's just the way this case has always been. You get this gut feeling about something that's going to happen or something that's happening, and it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It just means that it could be happening behind the scenes. I mean, we all knew it before we ever heard the name Richard Allen. We were 100% convinced that Anthony Schatz had something to do with the murders of Abby and Libby. I mean, it was just one of those things, one of those incredible coincidences. If it if that wasn't so. And then come to find out, this entire time, Kagan Klein had confessed, sat down with the investigative team, even took them to the crime scene. Just like Jake Harrow was taken out of prison earlier today or yesterday, actually it was today. And he was taken to the crime scene to show them where he dumped the body of Emmanuel. Well, that's what Kagan Klein did. He took them to Delphi and said, "Hey, I parked here at the cemetery." Never mentioned a red Jeep. That's just something that everybody likes to add in there for some reason. That's it's like one of those Mandela effect things, where if you go back and look at the facts, nobody ever said red Jeep. Some of that information came from Noe, who was Kagan Klein's little friend in prison or in jail. And then people just stalking Kagan Klein's Facebook and TK's Facebook and seeing the red Jeep everywhere. So that's just kind of like the Jurassic Park effect, just fill in the missing parts of the genome with frog DNA. Your brain's like pareidolia, just filling in the holes. Pitbull says fraudulent is the perfect word describing this mess. Okay, but again, why haven't the client spilled the beans? And then again, I don't. Yeah, I'm done talking. Yeah, I can't help you on that one. Easy E, being a former frequent user of the dark web, I'd love to know Keegan Klein's exact purpose of using the dark web, which sites he used, etc. Most dark web markets are so pro-free market, they include sections for the marketing of, I think you meant CSAM, to interested buyers. Yeah, and a lot of those are, what do they call them? Honeypots, I think. They're set up by the FBI to catch people. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt it if there was a video or photographs of Abby and Libby on the dark web. I think that even could have been the motivation. Just because somebody promises you a large amount of money doesn't mean that they're going to be able to come through. Jari says her TK is getting married. Ha! That's funny. For the other ones in the back, when those beans spilled were found to be false, why put weight in the lies? How is it false? I don't understand what you mean. I could care less if what Kagan. I mean, it's not that I could care less, but what I'm saying is that you're saying for Kagan Klein to spill the beans, and he did spill the beans. And then when he spills the beans, you're like, you're lying. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Scorpio, I love that Sleuth keeps covering this case. So many loose ends. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And everything that we thought was rumors, right? And turns out to be true. It's like everything you think you know about it flips completely upside down a year later. So why was Richard Allen transferred and now he's no longer listed as being there? What the fuck is going on? Why, when they transferred Richard Allen to a new prison during his trial that Kagan Klein was staying at, they immediately transferred Kagan Klein to that prison? If they're not connected, what difference does it make? And then they told Kagan Klein that they were moving him because of Richard Allen. Easy E says, I believe Richard Allen was convicted using the confessions from Ron Logan given to Reese Davis in 2017. That's why I'm here, because I don't believe Richard Allen was involved. Well, if you don't think Richard Allen is involved, you need to find out what his alibi was. That'd be the first thing I would do. What's Richard Allen's alibi, right? Why hasn't he made it public that he's innocent? If you can show me one video of Richard Allen saying, I didn't do this, that'd be nice, right? So he has no alibi, and he doesn't give a shit about telling the world that he's innocent or that he's being framed. And then you're going to have to find out why his mom did not testify. She was the last person to see him before the girls were murdered and refused to testify. And now you have the murder sheet coming out saying that their sources tell them that the mother came forward after his arrest, saying early on he was talking about the case and how they're going to try to frame him. And that also during the sentencing, he said, if you guys come to my sentencing, I'm going to attack the judge. I'm going to hurt the judge. That's fucking weird. And if you have nothing to say about the bullet, then I mean, it's going to be hard for us to agree on anything. Anthony, just because law enforcement can't sink that he was involved with luring, etc., does not mean it didn't happen. Exactly. And when it comes to law enforcement, that's why it's good that we have social media and people that just, follow the rule of the Constitution. Because law enforcement, they have so much bureaucratic red tape, and they have to protect their case like a little baby because of that bureaucratic red tape. Their ultimate goal is to get a conviction. Everything has to be viewed through that lens. And that's very restrictive for them. For us, we can go willy-nilly, but they have to protect their case. There's too many false confessions. There's just once Pandora's out of the box, there's no putting it back in for them. So they keep those cards close to their vest. Cool. Then, man, they went off the deep end with this case. Yeah. Mental health and emotional instability. Kate Harrell says, you make a lot of absolute statements. Where is the record public, not just Laura KK was taken to the crime scene? Hey, I've been over this. If you don't know that it's a fact that Kegan Klein confessed, then you have a lot more reviewing of this case to do. You haven't done enough. You're not on the same level as me right now when it comes to information about the case. If you need, if you're barely at this point of figuring out whether or not KK officially confessed, it's an absolute fact. And if you don't know that, I just don't understand how you think you could argue with me about these things. Easy E says, I could see KK possibly reloading phones or creating social media accounts such as Anthony Shots preloaded with underage friends, already semi-formed friendly relationships to sell to predators. Yes, but tell me why would that same person that's selling phones admit to participating in the Delphi murders as well? So which is it? Is he making phones and selling them to predators and lying about being involved? People put way too much into what Reese Davis says. For one, it's a third-party statement. The person that he's hearing it from could be lying to him. He's not seeing anything with his own eyes. On one hand, they say, oh, well, Richard Allen was coerced to confess. But then when you ask him, well, what about Ron Logan's confessions? He was in solitary confinement. He was locked up when he confessed. Why isn't he suffering from psychosis? Oh, well, that goes against my narrative. Oh, okay. That's what I thought. Law enforcement said followed through on the investigation of that, so the confession found he wasn't there. That's not true. Said that he had an alibi, which was his cell phone activity. That's it. Joni, closer to his family to visit. I don't know how being transferred to another state is going to help you. Thank you, Pitbull. Thank you for that. That's what I should have said. What's up, Stephanie? And I disagreed with his assumptions then. I don't know what assumptions you're referring to. It's crazy to see people fighting for a convicted child killer with no real ammunition. It's weird. Like if you have absolutely nothing to present, you're too busy denying actual facts. It's like your own bias won't allow you just to see what's right in front of you. Look, we know that false confessions exist. We know that police corruption is a real thing. We're not ignorant to that here. We're just telling you that we're taught you're comparing apples and oranges with this shit. Richard Allen is 100% guilty. The only reason your gut is telling you to be suspicious is because we're not done with the story. It ain't over. Who's he? I hope you're not talking about me like I'm not here. No, we advocate for that. We advocate for solitary confinement as being inhumane. You know, we advocate for a third solution, a third option other than prison and then a mental facility. We need somewhere in between. But yeah, solitary confinement and police corruption. This shit is real. You know, we're not ignorant to it. We're not being biased here. Like the evidence literally points to Richard Allen. How are you supporting somebody that absolutely has no alibi? And his mom wouldn't even testify for him. Like that's crazy to me. I haven't heard one audio clip of Richard Allen saying, I'm not the guy. I'm being set up. Please help me. But yet you have people who support him. Fucking weird to me. Kate Harrell says he confessed with bullshit lies. Are you talking about when he said like he shot the girls and all of that? I don't know if you're familiar with what malingering is or feigning, but it's kind of like when people try to act like they're insane and they go for the insanity plea and then they act like they're crazy. Like I shot the girls, right? Knowing that he didn't shoot the girls. So he says I shot them like he's playing dumb. Like you have to be careful of the manipulation that's there. If you don't see that kind of stuff or you're not even expecting it or inspecting it at the very least, you can be susceptible to it. Oh yeah, I forgot about that, Cindy. I have to go. Yeah, today I turned subscribers only mode is off. That's why you see some of these people here, because they're not subscribed to my channel. Pisces, what's up? Richard Allen did this. Absolutely did this. Did he do it alone? Why did he do it? Sweet Sleuth, wasn't it later reported that the cell phone activity was at KK's home when first they said it was at his cousin's house? No, it was at his home, and it was connected to the Wi-Fi near or at his cousin's home. So both statements are true. So basically, they can put his phone never left Peru. Yeah, but Kate, sometimes you just need to know when to agree to disagree. Like, it's just funny when people present information as facts when it's not a fact. That's what's dangerous. If you go around trying to push information that's not factual to try to fit your narrative, that's dangerous. That's misleading, can cause confusion, and that's the kind of stuff that causes harm. Perpetuating. Ron Logan said he used a box cutter. Well, Ron Logan never said he used a box cutter. Reese said that Ron Logan told him that he used a box cutter. And you also have to remember Reese Davis was in contact with Kagan Klein as well. So they both apparently confessed to him. And Kagan Klein is the one that actually confessed to being involved in the Delphi murders. So if there was ever a box cutter, if anybody was ever providing information about a box cutter, it was most likely Kagan Klein to Reese Davis. Remember, we don't have Ron Logan confessing. And just because Reese Davis says he did, doesn't mean he did. But even if Ron Logan did confess, why is his confession not a false confession? Why is Richard Allen's solitary confinement confession a false confession, but Ron Logan's solitary confinement confession is not valid? Why? Because there's a confirmation bias there and it doesn't fit the narrative. It's that simple, folks. No, they don't know. See, this is another perpetuated rumor. It says as well as male DNA that supposedly is not Richard Allen's. No. They found no male DNA except for a very faint sample. They found a very faint DNA sample. They don't know who it belongs to. They don't have the technology right now to identify it. It's so faint. Right? So everybody says, well, Richard Allen's DNA wasn't found at the crime scene. Well, there was no male DNA. Nobody's DNA was found at the crime scene that doesn't match a family member or the girls. So keep that in mind when you're saying, oh, Richard Allen could be innocent because they didn't find his DNA. So it's either a girl committed the murders, right? A girl did it, or the killer's DNA was wiped away through the water and just wasn't provided. Because you can't just say, oh, Richard Allen's DNA wasn't found at the crime scene. You have to say no male DNA was found. No identifiable male's DNA was found at the crime scene. So whoever did this was able to commit this murder without leaving their DNA. Why wasn't it Richard Allen? It could have been Richard Allen. Or it was a girl who committed the murder. Logical fallacy. I do find it odd that two different perverts have happened to prey on the same girls on the same day. Yeah, very interesting. And one of those perverts actually confessed, And during the confession said that him and his father met with somebody. Not only did they meet with somebody in Delphi, but we now know that Kagan Klein looked up the Marathon gas station on his phone that day. That is a fact, 100%. And the Marathon gas station is right around the corner from Richard Allen's home. And guess where Richard Allen used to work just a few weeks prior to the murders of Abby and Libby? He worked a block from the Klein home at a CVS in Peru, Indiana. Just saying. Pisces Love says Ron Logan shady, but he didn't do it. I don't know if he wasn't involved. I don't know. He could have facilitated it. I don't know. All I know is that Kagan Klein was the creator of Anthony Shots, created it around July of 2016. July of 2016 is the same month that he purchased the Las Vegas tickets. Right? After the murders, he goes to Las Vegas, gets back, and his home is raided. Can you call in? No. I don't feel like arguing with people that present things as fact when they're not. That's not what we do here. I don't have the energy for that. Victim, victim. All that proves is that his phone has an alibi. Yeah, that's bullshit. Like you're telling me that that's how easy it is to get away with murder? Here, use my phone. Tie your phone to your dog. Have your dog walk around the house or whatever. Just ask a friend to use it. I don't know if I would use the word cleared, Kate. Anthony says, didn't people who knew Ron say that he was scared to cross the bridge? I would too. Bridge was falling to pieces. I wouldn't. I'd cross that bridge in a heartbeat. Because Ron Logan's confession matches the prosecution's supposed murderer. Yeah, I won't deny that that's interesting, but you have to you have to consider the fact that Reese Davis may have received the information about the box cutter from Kagan Klein. And he's just he's using his inside information to manipulate his narrative. What can he sell? What product can he sell to get what he needs? You think he's being a good Samaritan? Hell no. These jailhouse snitches are looking for something in return. They're motivated. So it's like, oh, I don't buy Richard Allen's confession, but I do trust Reese Davis. Do you see? I'm just asking for people to be consistent. Is that too much to ask for a little consistency? Jeez. Pisces Love says they got him in the creek. That's why there's not so much blood. See, that's another misconception. There was tons of blood. There were pools of blood. Abby's hoodie was drenched in it. More perpetuated lies. Crazy. The Franks memo did a lot of damage, just not enough for them. Not enough as designed. Oh yeah, I guarantee it would have been scary. Yeah, please do. Yeah, we're not going to stay long. This will probably be our 10-minute warning. I figured we were due for a Delphi rant and turn subscriber mode off and see who comes out of the woodwork. J Ray. Not Ray J, but J Ray. But isn't that contrary to your belief Richard Allen confessed to doing it alone, but they're trying to include the Kleins? What do you mean, my belief that Richard Allen confessed? I don't put a lot of weight into Richard Allen's confessions. The ones that I play through his phone call, you guys can make up your own minds, But he could have some kind of mental issue to where he's trying to sound like a martyr, right? Like he might even be trying to manipulate his wife through these false confessions, if that's what they are, right? Trying to be like a victim. Like I didn't do it, but I'll take the blame anyway. You know what I mean? It's just pure manipulation. So you don't need those confessions. They had him without the confessions. His timeline with no alibi is already very suspicious, right? And then he originally tipped in that he was there from 1:30 to 3:30. So it's also very suspicious to try to change your story. That's one telltale sign of a liar. People that change their story constantly. Well, that's what he did. Then he had no alibi. Nobody testified for him about his behavior and his character that day. He still hasn't come out publicly and talked about his innocence. And now that the dust is settling, the information about his mother's own suspicions are being made public. Yet people continue to question this. I don't understand it. And then when you ask them, well, why do you believe this? Then they say some stupid shit like, Kagan Klein never confessed. And then you have to smack your head and be like, oh. It's like beating your head against a wall sometimes. Pisces, I'm new here. So thoughts on Liberty's sister's hair and Abby's finger. Well, we did an experiment on my channel the day after that information was made public. I told everybody that was willing to do it to go in their closet right now and to fold the sleeves on any hoodies that they have in their closet inside out. So if you have females in your home, whether you're a man or a woman, just to go in your closet and pull out a hoodie that you've worn recently and fold the sleeves up and tell me what you find. People were finding all kinds of hair, right? For instance, mine, I had my wife's hair right there, like all over on the inside of my sleeve. So if I put on a hoodie and my hands are wet, there's a good chance that I'm going to wrap one of those hairs into my fingers. I mean, it's just common sense, guys. It happens constantly. I'm not thinking she had anything to do with it, but people bring it up all the time. Well, yeah, it's because they want people to believe that she had something to do with it. They don't know whether it was Kelsey. They don't know whether it was Ron Logan. You got to ask yourself, why not Richard Allen? Why not? Like, how is it that you've completely convinced yourself away from all of the actual factual information? How did that happen to you? Like, where did it all go wrong? Yeah, I've never even heard of a story about Ron Logan being near that bridge. Well, what about Richard Allen, whose bullet was found at the crime scene? Well, apparently he went to that bridge constantly. He said, "Oh, well, it's not like it's the ritual, but we would get to the trails, cross the bridge, go down to the private drive." And he even said with his daughter. Makes you wonder why he was so comfortable to take these young girls down where he did and have them undress. Honestly, guys, it makes me wonder about the real dynamic or some of these other names that he mentions, right? I'm sorry I did this to such and such. I'm sorry I did this to them. Under the other moniker, you liked me. Maybe it was just the moniker. No more judging by the moniker, but by the content of your chat. Anthony confessing he's seen a white van. Yeah, and that fits the story, right? He's just comfortable. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rape these two girls. And then smack dab in the middle of it, here comes this van. And he starts freaking out. And the girls pick up their clothes and take off running. And he's so mad that he has to go through that cold creek and chase those girls. He's so mad that as soon as he catches Libby, he just starts swiping at her jugular. It was in pure chaos, rage, probably blackout, maybe. Blackout rage. And when he was done, he allowed Abby to get dressed in the clothing that was right there on the ground. And he was like, "What did I do? What did I do?" He was thinking about what are his options. And that's why he apologized for killing Abby, because that's the only one he made the conscious decision to kill. I think when it came to Libby, the crime scene and the information that was released during the trial tells us it was pure chaos. No defensive wounds, but extreme violence, with the attack against her, especially right there on her neck. The person was targeting that jugular vein. He just wanted to kill, 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 kill. But when it came to Abby, it was more calculated. It was more get dressed, sit down, and she tried to hide the phone. She tried to hide the phone in the shoe, and she sat on top of it. And when he was moving Libby around, she tried to access it. She tried to access it a few times. And then it was right there on 132 that he came up and he made the decision that he was going to kill her. And he only did one swipe because this was the calculated part of the attack. The rest was the chaos caused by the van and the panic and having to go through that cold water and worrying about his wife finding out. That's what I see with the attack against Libby, was all that frustration, all that panic, all that rage bottled in to that one moment. And then the arranging of the crime scene and what was going on with the redressing and Libby. Now remember, there should be no DNA. If he's not on top of Libby, like trying to penetrate with a knife or strangle, he's just kind of standing back while her neck is exposed. She's holding her clothing and he's just swiping. So if he's got gloves on or a hoodie or anything like that, he could just dispose of that. What's up, Peggy? I would like to understand how it is possible to have multiple different agencies at the local, state, and federal level and have very little findings. For example, time of death, weapon. Let's see. Multiple different agencies, local, state, federal, have very little findings. For example, time of death. I'm not sure. I think the time of death maybe have something to do with, The elements, perhaps. But I think they boil it down to between 2:30 and 3. Oh yeah. Whenever they just ask him a basic question, he gives them just a straight answer. Oh well, yeah, I drove here, worked here, did that. Oh, okay. But when they ask him a question that has to do with evidence that he knows is directly relating to the case, he has this long word salad. Yeah, that's funny, Anthony. It kind of comes across like they purposely and willfully did not want answers, in my opinion. No, I think people just give law enforcement too much credit. You know what I mean? Honestly, they're just people. I thought they did enhance the audio. I think they tried to. It's just that stuff's just so subjective. And I think that's another reason people get so frustrated about the trial, and it kind of inspires support for Richard Allen because of what the prosecution did with the video and the way that they manipulated the jury about it. That's what they're supposed to do in that courtroom. The defense side didn't do a whole lot to combat that. But the thing is that they're trying to make these charges stick on Richard Allen, knowing how fragile it is. And I think it's because they know that there's a whole lot more to what's going on. And that explains why Richard Allen is being so quiet. There's other players, I think, here at play. So they tried to do a balancing act. Okay, how do we go into this courtroom and not have to tell the jury or the judge that we think Kagan Klein and all these other people are involved without hurting our position? Well, it was impossible. And the reason the defense didn't mention Kagan Klein or Anthony Schatz because they felt that there was a chance that it could lead back to their client. Because they knew full well about the confessions. They knew some of that was probably hidden. And shortly after Kagan Klein's confession is when they arrested their client. Easy. Since we are both in Phoenix, you should look into the. I've already done a show on the Canal Killer. Yep, we've already covered that. I have like 3 videos on that. Yeah, it's an interesting case. Yeah, that dude was pretty scary. Where did you exit the trails that day? Well, I could have left out that way. Maybe over here. Laugh out loud. As they show him a map. You remembered all the other things. Yeah, exactly. Peggy, good to see you. It's crazy to me that the time of death is being calculated from the time the phone stopped moving. I think there were some other reasons as well. I don't think it was. I think that was just some supporting information. I think the pathologist said somewhere between 2:30 and 3. Jerry says, if I were on the jury, I think I would have had an issue with the unspent round being certainly his. I plead the fifth. You can't handle the truth. Did you order the code red? You're damn right I did. Weird how he said it wasn't a ritual or anything. Yeah, he's like, it wasn't a ritual or anything. Yeah, that's what this really is. We got about 4 minutes remaining, guys. Easy said the coroner said that Abby likely died first. Yeah, I think you might be right. I disagree with that. All right, let me scroll down to some of these comments. Anthony, Jerry knew he did it. That's why he lost his mind. This case had probably haunted him. Mentioning earlier how Doug still hasn't called me to answer all my questions. Yeah, where are you, Doug? I hope one day we'll get an opportunity to answer all of your questions, but now's not the time. When? When gonna be the time? From what is that? Chasing Amy or Jane Silent Ball? When, Lord? What's up, Charlotte? Shout out to the UK. You got it, Peggy. Always good to see you in the chat. J Ray Sleuth. What about that little blonde girl, Rebecca? I can't remember her last name. She was 10, just died recently in Phoenix or close by. I think at the hands of her father. Have you covered it? No, I'm not sure which one you're referring to. Charlie Murphy. His lawyers just convinced him he could get off, and he just fell into that belief. Richard Allen, no. I think that he wanted to confess, but we all heard the phone calls. He was diagnosed with dependent personality disorder, and when that happens, usually you have somebody that you attach to. You know, that's just comes with that. And Kathy Allen was that for him with his personality disorder. That's who he was dependent on, was her. So when he's trying to confess to her, like, hey, I did this. And she's like, no way you did this. No, he's thinking, I don't want to upset her. I guess I got to go through it. You know what I mean? Not one time did Kathy say, I can't believe you did this. Why did you do this? If you did this, we're gonna have to work it out. We're gonna have to figure out what to do. You're gonna have to pay the price for it. But instead, she couldn't handle it. She didn't care about Richard Allen. She just cared about the fact that if he's guilty, that means that she married a child killer. Try living with that. She couldn't do it. And Richard Allen didn't want to do that to her. So he didn't confess. He just went through the process, and the defense team exploited that. They got a lot of notoriety from this case, and it's continuing to this day. Thank you, Jari. If you guys need to hit me up, there's my email address. Hit up the Cash App if you can. If not, hit the like button. Mark says Kathy Allen will come around, in my opinion. All right, guys, that is going to do it for this quick little live stream. I'm going to go ahead and hit the sack. If you guys need to hit me up or reach me for whatever reason, don't be shy. Email me at sleuthintuition@gmail.com. Otherwise, replay crew, you know what to do. Drop a comment and we'll get back to you. Everybody else, until next time. Peace.
I rest my case.